And that's where I found out from one of our neighbors started a WhatsApp chat, and one of the neighbors had made it out onto our street, like went back somehow and took footage and confirmed that all of the houses on our street, both sides, were gone. And so that was like 11 o'clock. So pretty much like 24 hours later. And so it was at the Apple store in, I don't even know where we were at, somewhere in the South Bay. And I just remember finding out. And it was weird because I started crying in like outside of the Apple store. And it was weird. I took a picture of it, but like life just kept
around
happening.
you.
At the time of this recording, we are a little over 2 weeks removed from the Palisades fire that occurred on Tuesday, January 7, 2025. This devastating event has deeply impacted my family and me, leading us to shift our focus entirely to navigating this challenging time. As such, I'm taking a step back from all things work-related, including this podcast Responding to Life and my wellness business Mindful Wellbeing Pathways. Right now, my energy is devoted to doing what I often encourage my listeners to do, truly responding to life. I'm focusing on supporting my family, finding stability, and taking the time to process and rebuild after what has been a life-altering experience. So for this episode, I'm joined by my good friend, Jess Koehler. Jess started off as our family photographer, capturing so many precious moments, but she quickly became a dear friend and a trusted partner in many of my wellness events. Jess is one of the kindest, most thoughtful and sincere people I know. She also experienced the recent LA fires in a different way, and I thought she'd be the perfect person to have this important conversation with. Thank you for listening and for supporting me and my family as we navigate this time. And without further ado, here we go on to that episode. Hi, it's Josephine Lurie, Responding to Life podcast. This is a special edition, very different from usual podcasts. We're 2 weeks out from the Palisades fire, and I live in the Pacific Palisades. I'm joined by my dear friend, Jess Koehler, who has photographed our family and also photographed my wellness retreats over the last few years. And she has a different perspective of having been living here in LA through all of this. So I just thought she was the best person to have this friendly conversation with. And so with that, we're just going to get right into it.
Hi, Jess. Here we are. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So thank you
thank you
for inviting me into this space to do this with you. I think for me, I would like to just get more of the perspective for you of when I think back. For me, I remember hearing Palisades, on the news and stuff, and you were my first person that I thought about of, oh crap, what's going on over there? And I'm curious, we haven't really debriefed this, of the very first moment for you that you knew something's off.
Yeah. So that Tuesday, it was a little different. I was working in my dining room and the windows face my backyard. So I was there all morning, and then I had my appointment with my trainer at 10:30, and I'm running late as usual. So I run up to my room, and that's where I have big windows looking out into where the fire started. And I saw the plume of smoke, literally what looked like just down the street, but up the hill for me. And I thought, oh no, this is a problem. Only because the night before we had received warnings for the Santa Ana winds and high wind warnings. And it was picking up. It was very, it was going strong overnight like it usually does. But then in the morning it was still going. And when I saw that, I thought, oh, this is not going to be good. So I told my husband, who thankfully was working from home that day, and I went about doing my training session, but like a few minutes in, I thought, I need to stop. This is not going to be good. And during that time, my husband had started packing. I told him we should probably start packing. And I ended my session. I opened up the garage and I looked out, and it had already the plume had already like seemingly doubled in size. And I said, okay, you get to where you need to go safely. I just have to go and pack. And so from that point on, which was at 11 o'clock, we hadn't received evacuation warnings yet. So, but my son had heard about it. So he's texting us from school saying what's happening. And we said, okay, we're packing up the house. You just do, they're all at school in various places away from the Palisades. And at that point, I started to pack for myself and then for the older three kids. And it felt like I only had 15 minutes, but I thankfully had an hour, a little over an hour to pack in retrospect. And I went through each room calmly at first, a little organized. Some of the kids had texted specifically what they wanted, but then towards the end, I felt like I was ransacking my house like a thief because I was just dumping things and dumping like garbage cans so I could use them as containers, and packing for them at least like essential things that I have seen them wear over and over again. So those were things that I took. And then things that were on bulletin boards. So a lot of like those photo booth pictures that you necessarily wouldn't have on digital things. Those were things in my mind. Like, do I have a digital copy of this? Then I'm leaving it. If not, letters that they had left up from their grandmothers, I'm pulling down and putting into whatever bag I had on me. There were moments where like gifts that we had given them. Can I take this? If it was bulky, I had to say no to it. I did make sure to pick things that were a comfort item for them. And for each child, it was different. So for my eldest, it was his guitar because that's his stress relief, but also his colognes because he's building up a collection. With my daughter, she wanted her pillow that she got for Christmas. But then I also took the sewing kit that my mother had left her. And then for my other son, he's really big into letters. And so I took all of the notes that he had posted up from his grandparents. And then the little boys, I took their like Pokemon dolls that they sleep with, but I know that they need to sleep with it. And as I'm throwing them down into the foyer, my husband's like, we can't take these. And I said, I'm taking them. They need them to fall asleep at night. Yeah. And the little girls, I took like random things that I thought. So in that process, I didn't really take things for myself, nor did my husband, for different reasons. My husband didn't think this was going to be a big thing. I, like in one of your questions, said I think looking at the house that was going to be the last time I would see the house. It was weird because it was like I saw it and I thought this isn't good. The way the winds are blowing and it's like up the hill. This isn't good. But it wasn't a thought of like this is the last time I'm going to see the house.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that, but I felt like doom, but not like this is it.
Done.
Like I'm saying goodbye to the house.
Right.
In a weird way. I don't know. I can't describe it. And so then my father was in the house as well, so he grabbed his stuff. That's one of my big regrets is that I didn't have a chance to help him with all of his items. With like, I mean, obviously with an 80-year-old plus parent, they don't have digital things of their mementos. So I felt bad about that, but I thought, okay, like he's taking care of himself. I'm taking care of like the 7 kids.
Yeah.
And myself. So yeah, that was one of my big regrets, but I have since been able to sort of figure that out.
I know for me, in the moment that I packed a go bag because I was closer to the Sunset Fire, I felt like I couldn't understand how to regulate my energy on the inside of, am I overreacting?
Sure.
Or am I being appropriately concerned for what to bring right now and walking around? And it's like, and there was, a little bit of tension between somebody else in my family of like, what is what of how to choose in this moment. You described that, but then with your father and your dad, or your father and your husband being in the house too, like what was the energy amongst the three? Like your husband didn't necessarily think that it was as big of a thing. What was going on with your dad and his energy then?
I think he had the same sort of mindset as my husband. He just packed but he in general just packs a backpack for
A
things.
light
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
And he just even in the way he talked about it, he's like, "Oh, I'll just be able to go back the next day."
Yeah.
Whereas in my mind, I thought, "Yeah, I don't think so. I
Yeah.
don't think this is what's gonna happen."
Yeah.
No.
So the three of you left the house by approximately what,
It was probably
noonish?
around noonish, yeah. At that point, we had received the evacuation warning on the
Okay.
phones that we had to go, and that's when things started to really pick up. And that's when, like, my husband's like, "We need to go," and I'm still trying to. At this point now, it's like a frenzied packing
Yeah.
of like I'm just throwing everything that I can into any suitcase or garbage can or receptacle that we had.
Okay. And you're like
Um,
loading both cars?
all three cars,
All three
yeah,
cars.
but
Okay.
not even because we thought, well, we have to have room for the kids who
Uh,
weren't with us.
right.
Wherever we end up, we're going
Yeah.
to have all of this, plus we have
Plus
to make room for
the
the
children.
kids. So there were many things that I think I've described where I'm
Yeah.
standing in front of something and had to make this impossible decision of like, do I keep this or do I move? And so many of them were just like, I just can't because this is too bulky. Like pictures of people who were very important to us, my wedding albums that weren't digitized, and um, I think I mentioned to you like all the frames, pieces of artwork that the kids had made over
Yeah.
the years in our
Those
dining
one
room
of a
table.
kind
Yeah, yeah.
things. Yeah.
So
So when you got, I mean, I had a couple of experiences where I got that very high pitched alert on my phone for evacuation stuff. And so when you got that, I'm just curious of like the senses. Were you like, oh, that's affirmation? Did it just like heighten your heartbeat, or or what was happening
yeah.
when you heard that sound specifically?
Well, that was just one of many sounds because
Okay.
at that point, constant sirens,
Okay.
constant helicopters whizzing really close by to us because it was right
Yeah.
up the hill. So presumably people, helicopters or planes dropping water or retardant or things like that. So it was just many sounds, and it was weird because I described it in a blog post that I had written that when I would stare at certain things, it'd become quiet as I'm trying to process, can I take this? But it would be just a few seconds, and then I'd hear an alarm or I'd hear a siren, or a plane whizzing by, and that would like shock me out of my reverie and be like, okay, no, I cannot take this. I actually need to evacuate right
Yeah.
now. And I'm thankful that we did because I heard many stories of people who were stuck on the streets that we were in trying to get out of the Palisades, and who just had to get out of their car and run because of the way the wind was blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I was stuck trying to get onto Temescal Canyon, onto the PCH, which is where the beach is, for those that don't know, I was stuck on there for an hour. And I was freaking out because I thought, I don't know where this wind is blowing. Like there was also the sound of the wind, like gusting. And I thought, I could just be a sitting duck here. So it's nerve wracking to be on Temescal Canyon trying to get to PCH to just escape,
Yeah.
with all that stuff. And so I don't even know what your question was, but that's like sights and sounds. And so that's what, and then you'd have ash that was like blowing and like, it was crazy. I mean, I'm fortunate that I've never had to be in a war zone, but I can only imagine what that would feel like because that's what it felt like with all the like police vehicles and ambulances and fire trucks whizzing by us on the empty side because they had shut off the roads coming in,
Hmm.
and all the planes coming literally overhead with all the ash and just sirens. It was nuts. I feel so glad that the kids were at school and didn't
Yeah.
have to experience that
Yeah.
because I can imagine that would be very traumatic for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you get to PCH and start to move away from the Palisades area, where's the first place you went?
So thankfully we had my husband's company has just been so amazing with helping us out, but his assistant found a place for us in like close by to the kids' schools where we could stay overnight. And so we just sort of headed that way and figured out like picking up kids from various, because the kids still stayed in school. There was no need to evacuate them because they weren't in the Palisades. So um, that's where we all headed. And that's where we had to, I mean, they kind of knew because, at least the older ones knew because they all saw the group family chat that we had, but the little boys didn't really know. And that's when we had to break the news to them.
So you pick them up from school
Mhm.
and
Take them to a hotel.
you take them to a
Yeah.
hotel,
Yeah.
and the littles, I mean,
Yeah.
at that stage, your older kids have access to
Yeah.
news and stuff.
Yeah.
So were the older kids, did they get a text from you saying like,
Yeah.
it's okay, so they knew from that,
Like, this is where
just
we're
via
meeting up.
text, this
This
is
is
what's
what's happening. One of
Okay.
them had to stay with his friend at his friend's house because he was further away, and then the other two we had to take. And so it was more the little ones that we had to break it to. Little ones being our 9-year-olds, and then the 3-year-old twins. Just that, okay, there's a big fire over by us, so we have to stay here for now until we see what happens.
That's an interesting thing for the kids, you know, because I have an 8 and a 10-year-old, and when I was going through the packing a go bag process, I was like, oh, there's really only so much their brains can understand and comprehend about the gravity of the situation right now.
Right.
And I know for me, who did not lose my home, but still had a go bag ready because of the Sunset Fire, I was thinking how much I was externally trying to have this like calmness to me for the sake of the kids.
Yeah.
And internally, I was just like, I mean, I was cussing of like, oh crap, like what's going on? What's happening? Like, how do we navigate this? How do I appropriately have the kids informed without freaking them out as well?
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess for your 9-year-olds, did they what was their demeanor of were they like, oh, okay, on to the next, we're just gonna hang out here? Like, did they have what was their comprehension of the gravity of it at
I
that
don't
moment?
know. On that first day, that there was such a gravity to it because there was so much unknown. So we could very well have gotten back to our house because maybe some firefighters were able to get to it. So we really didn't know.
Yeah.
We had Nest cameras that my husband kept checking into. I couldn't stomach checking into it because I didn't want to see whatever I saw or whatever I didn't see at that point.
Did he look?
He kept looking.
He did.
Yeah. And then at a certain point in the evening, it stopped.
Okay.
But we didn't know if that stopped because of the fire or because at that point there was no Wi-Fi in that area. But for the kids, we just tried to just keep them calm. Like, we're safe. That was sort of the main message, is that, hey, well, we're out of there. We're safe here. We're all together.
Yeah.
That's important stuff. I was able to bring a lot of your stuff with you. So we're good for now until the power went off. Never in a hotel with the power off, and it just made it
I didn't know
so much more like dramatic than it had to be, and then the ventilation system wasn't working. I swear I could smell smoke. I couldn't sleep that first night because I felt like my asthma would get triggered by the smoke because of the winds blowing. Plus, where we were, it was so windy that night, and maybe because the hotel was tall, like high, like you could really hear the winds, and it kept you up all night. And then lo and behold, we wake up in the morning, and we saw a fire that was pretty close by, and we're like, okay, now we have to
go again.
We have to get out of here. The elevators aren't working. I'm bringing suitcases down, up and down flights of stairs, trying to keep the kids calm. Like, okay, it's okay. My husband's assistant found us another place. Now we're going south. We're going down to Redondo, and hopefully that's far enough away. And like, just maintaining calm throughout the whole thing. It was nuts.
I mean, that's the thing for somebody like you, like mindfulness is a massive part of your life in general. And I just think for all of the people, like, you had the tools in the toolbox to tap into at whatever level in those moments. And then I think about all the people that just did not have that and are just spiraling.
Yeah, which we heard. Like, my kids would tell me that they overheard in their room, like a parent screaming at their kids, like all these things. Like, yeah, I mean, that's the
yeah,
natural sort of thing. And
yeah,
I feel fortunate to have been able to provide a sort of like a calmer space for them, even though internally it was kind of nuts.
yeah. So you go down to Redondo, and then what? Like the cams went off, but at that stage, you're not really 100% sure
Yeah.
if it's gone.
Yeah.
What was the moment that you got confirmation that the house was gone?
Yeah. So in my frenzy towards the end, like I kept going back in and out of the house. I apparently had left my phone there.
You left your
I
phone at the
left my phone in the
house?
house. Yeah. 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 And I was able to communicate people because as I was sitting on Temescal Canyon in traffic, I walk over to the back. I had one of the boys' iPads and I have Wi-Fi in my car. So I took theirs and I told everyone I'm safe, but I think I left the phone in the house. So communicate through to me via like the
boys.
kid's
Yeah.
iPad. But yeah, when we looked for the location, it was still there. But anyway, so to answer your question, the next morning we tried to check into that hotel in Redondo, which was filled, by the way, with people. I didn't go in, my husband went in, and it was filled with crying people in the lobby, people who were displaced and trying to find a place to stay. So our room was not ready at that point. So we went to the mall. We hung out at the mall a lot over those next few days. So we went to get my phone because that was kind of an essential piece.
Yeah.
And so we're hanging out at the Apple store and we were there for a couple of hours. And that's where I found out from one of our neighbors started a WhatsApp chat. And one of the neighbors had made it out onto our street, like went back somehow and took footage and confirmed that all of the houses on our street, both sides, were gone. And so that was like 11 o'clock. So pretty much like 24 hours later. And so it was at the Apple store in, I don't even know where we were at, somewhere in the South Bay. And I just remember finding out. And it was weird because I started crying in like outside of the Apple store. And it was weird. I took a picture of it, but like life just kept
Around you.
happening. And then I had to tell the kids, just like confirmation, at least the older ones, just so that they wouldn't hold that hope. Because I thought that would be like kind of cruel for them to still hold on to something. So I let them know, and I didn't. I don't know when I told the little boys. Probably later in the day, but as it sort of came up organically. But I told them then, and then it was weird because like life just kept happening down in that mall, and we're now displaced and trying to figure it out. And yeah, just kept going. Had to do lunch. Had to have the kids go to some play space so that they could do something.
Yeah.
And then thankfully we had a few days in the hotel. You were so gracious to come over like that second night that we were away, which made like a huge difference just to see someone familiar. And your kids were so sweet to our kids. And then the next day, someone offered up their home in Manhattan Beach. They said that they would leave and go somewhere else, and we were able to stay at their house for a week, which was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what comes up naturally for me, and share what you want about it, but I think even in your response of not spending as much time getting things for yourself, forgetting your phone, that element of it,
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, we are mothers. We always put everybody else's needs or what we can project that they will need ahead of our own. And I guess I would love to just tap into like what this has meant for your nervous system. Because I know for me, my nervous system was super shot. Like I was just the processing of the amount of information, not only the information from the news, the information from social media, but then also there was two kind of layers that I experienced where it was the inner layer of fellow Angelinos communicating, are you safe? What do you need? Where are you? How can I help?
Mm-hmm.
On a responsive emergency level within. And then there was the outside layer of anybody not in LA that knows us checking in, wanting to know if we're okay. And all of that happening amongst mothering and the children and then work and all of those things just felt very heavy to navigate. And for me, and I'm like, I didn't even lose my home. And so I guess for you in the work that you do, I'm just curious of what has your nervous system felt like during these last, like maybe for the first week, and kind of where you're at right now and taking care of yourself.
No, that's a good question. It's definitely not what it was, but I do have to say I benefit from having done that work, because I feel like I moved through it with a level of calm, and grace and bravery, that I was trying to model for my kids, but also just to have for myself. And so, the first week it was just survival and adrenaline and just thinking about keeping the kids supported and safe. And then the next, and I couldn't eat that week. The second week, once we moved into that house, we were able to breathe a sigh of relief and still trying to focus on their kids' safety and now trying to introduce sort of routines of like school or if a lot of them didn't go back to school, but just regular routines for them. And then that's when I started to feel it in my body, the stress, just like tightness and all of that. And then now that we're into the rental house, the long-term rental house, now it just feels just sort of like heavy, I guess. Because now you're trying to get back into regular life and really establishing full routines like for this next year. But having it feel like you're grieving the loss of a loved one. I mean, that's what it's felt like when people come up to me. It's like back to the conversations that I would have when I lost my mom a couple years ago. And so it's just felt very like it's transitioned differently, but it's felt heavy. And to your point about how my work has played a role in it, I've tried to I'm not definitely meditating. I'm not going to lie to anyone. I'm not meditating right now.
She's not meditating, guys.
But
She's not meditating. Let's just be real, okay?
But I have been doing, affirmations here and there and telling myself like, okay, you got this. Like,
I bet you've saged though, haven't you?
Jess left me on that first night that she came over a little care package for myself on my bed, my hotel bed with sage in it. And I joked to her when I saw it and it had matches, like, I never want to see a fire ever again. But I actually did use it to sage the rental home.
That was a weird thing for me because when I was thinking of like the things that we wanted to bring you at the hotel, I'm like going around and I had extra sage and I was like, yes, obvi. And then right next to it, I had this little jar of like some matches left and I was like,
how's she going to activate the sage?
How she needs something to light the sage. But I don't know how this is going to go. Like, how do you be a friend in this moment? And it was like...
It was necessary. I had to.
Yeah.
And I did have to sage the house. Even though my husband joked and it was just like, well, you saged the house before. That didn't
Way to go, girl. You keep on doing your woo-woo stuff over there. but it didn't work.
I still had to do it. So yeah. So no, thank you for the sage. But yeah, I'm not meditating, but I am doing deep breathing when I need to, and I just feel it. I had started a gratitude journal like around Christmas time. I had bought it and I was doing it religiously, and then obviously there will be a 2 week gap. But I have been like thinking to myself, if I'm actually writing in this, what would I write? Well, at this point, I'm just writing. I'm just thankful that we have resources. I'm thankful for the community that helped lift us up. You are part of that. I'm thankful that my family is safe
Yeah.
and that we found a place to stay for a
Yeah.
year. I mean, so many things to be grateful for, silver linings, but at the same time, um, it sucks. Like,
Yeah.
even though I feel lucky, obviously so lucky and so privileged, in comparison to so many other people who were devastated by this, it just kind of sucks. And it also,
Kinda.
I mean,
Like,
it just kind of, it
yeah.
does suck.
Well, it seems like it's just
Yeah.
the waves of grief.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, the day that we're recording this is January 23rd, 2025. And I make up that we were going to be unpacking the waves of grief, of really understanding, even a year from now when you are thinking about something you want to go grab out of a drawer or your Christmas village,
Yeah.
the things that are going to hit you in seasons when it's
Yeah.
applicable for the season of what you've had. Because, obviously this is one story of so many people in Los Angeles that have been deeply impacted by this. It's not just the house.
Yeah. 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 And that's what I have to keep telling myself. Because I keep saying to people, well, it's just things. It's just not like things that we can buy and replace. But then I think about it, and there are a lot of things that I can't just buy and
Yeah.
replace. Like I mentioned with the kids' artwork that I had saved over the years. And you mentioned my Christmas village that I had been building for 18 years since my eldest was born, that I did because my grandmother did it when I was growing up. And so that was a tradition that I wanted to keep alive. So there are, to your point, a lot of things that were lost in that I feel like I need to grieve. So that's the hard part, is just trying to figure out my own process in relation to my kids. Because it feels like oftentimes it takes a back seat to how I have to sort of support them.
Yeah.
And the hardest part with that is that I have 7 kids and they all do it different.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I can project my own process onto them and my own feelings, and I catch myself and have to tell myself, okay, well, that's not necessarily how they're feeling and how they're going to move through this. But then another added layer of that is I'll sometimes rope them all in together and think, okay, the kids will process this way, but they're all different individuals. And so that's where it gets complicated, because then I'll have to shift sort of my perspective and my approach from like the teens to the toddlers, and even amongst the teens, they're all different. So that's, for me, I feel like is the most complicated part of it.
Yeah, I can't even. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just processing that and thinking through, how do you show up in a way that's authentic to you, for yourself as a human, a woman, a mother, and also allowing for them to have their own experience and like giving space for that.
Yeah. So I just let them go through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's been different. Like one of the little girls will refer to it as her firehouse.
Oh,
So
wow.
if she sees a toy, she'll be like, "Oh, mommy, did you save this from the firehouse?"
Oh,
Sometimes it'll be a yes. Sometimes it'll be, "No, I just bought you a replacement." And she'll be like, "Oh, thank you for saving this." And then with the older ones, one of them just needs to be with friends. Another one needs to hang out with me more. Another one just flat out told me, "Mommy, you don't have to be strong for us." And that just gave me permission to just start crying.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. And so in the beginning, I had to operate with like bravery and strength and also adrenaline and just go through the motions and just be the person between me and my husband who was just supporting them. And then as the days went on, I did like break down in tears when certain things would pop up in conversation or something to just be authentic to myself and my
Mhm.
experience, but also to model to them that it's okay to
Yeah.
have these emotions and
Yeah.
go through it, and that we are a safe space for you to allow that to happen, however and whenever it happens.
Yeah. I feel that. I've cried in front of my kids through my own, like, waves of grief in just life in
Yeah. Yeah.
general, and I think it is healthy to
Mhm.
appropriately grieve and show this emotion,
Mhm.
because to have something so significant happen, and for me, I think to have parents that show nothing,
Mhm.
that's more confusing to me without the information. Like, if there's
Mhm.
no information and there's no emotional reaction, that seems like it reflects the reality of the deep loss.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
confusing to me. I remember that as a kid too, of just feeling like, I don't know where to categorize this because
Yes. Yes.
I'm looking to the elders around me to navigate how to categorize this, and it's not aligning because I feel something,
Right.
but I don't necessarily know that I have the safe space to express it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's a beautiful thing. It's a
Yeah.
gift, in my opinion.
I mean, I agree. Like, that was one of my core memories growing up is seeing my dad cry when his mother passed away.
Yeah.
My dad growing up was just this, like, very stoic person who didn't have many emotions, and that's how everyone knew him as. But seeing him in that room, just crying, just brought a different side to him that, like, stuck with me forever.
Yeah.
Um, and not it didn't diminish him anyway. I think it almost just rounded him out as a human.
Mm,
Like, you're not just this
yeah.
person as I know you. You're so many other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're gonna transition, take some time of taking care of your family, the insurance process, all of that stuff. Is there, like, anything that you want to share of what's ahead, um, within this, like, within what you're navigating, how the community can support you, or anything like that you wanna share?
Yeah, I remember seeing in your notes when I shared the questions with you. And I think you were right. Like, I don't even am I even at that point in grief where I can think about the future?
Yeah.
The honest answer was no when I
Yeah.
sat and thought about it. Like, and even with people asking me what I need, I just can only look like a few steps in front of me.
Yeah.
In part because I'm just overwhelmed by like this new normal that's not normal whatsoever.
Yep.
But then also it's just overwhelming to think big picture of just like, okay, well, these are all the things that we have to do. Um, and then just yeah, so I'm just looking like what's right in front of me. Like, I can't think
Mhm.
about so for right now it's settling into the mental home
Yeah.
and getting the kids situated. And then after that it's the insurance stuff. And then after that, figuring out, are we even gonna go back there? Like, we still have to pay the mortgage. Are we gonna rebuild? Do you want to rebuild there? Like, so many Angelinas are thinking, do we even want to stay here? I mean, is
Mhm.
this even where we want to like pick up again? So there are many questions, and it's just a little daunting to think that it's not a 6 month process. That it's more of like a 2, 3 year process.
Yeah.
Especially in relation to like our kids, our older three going off to college, right? But then we still have the little ones, so it's just a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking it like immediate steps, baby steps, and I do have to shout out everyone who has supported us from my husband's coworker who gave us a place to stay to people like my friends like yourself who did these amazing gestures to just remind us that we're supported and loved and cared for. Um, just so many people. reached out. And from the beginning, it was really hard for me to accept a lot of this because, as I mentioned to people, that we have the resources to be able to support our family, whereas a lot of people don't. And I just felt bad accepting things when they should go to like baby to baby or to fire aid or to the first responders, like all the people who need it because they don't have backups. Um, so this whole process has taught me the lesson of learning how to accept help and graciously and because I'm always on the other end of things, like just willing, like that's what lights me up is to be able to do that for other people.
Yeah.
But I have to just remind myself that other people need to have that opportunity to do it. So I've been trying to, I think I mentioned to you, try to be more intentional about how I ask for help and how people can help me. So it's just like little things. Like
Let me take the cardboard boxes outside before I leave. That's an example, right?
Sure, now you're holding that against me. It's really hard. It's really hard to say yes to help. It's always been a problem.
Let me wash the dishes before I go.
Yes. Yeah, but at the end of the day, I was telling my husband, like, I do want the kids to feel that sense of community and love and support. So
Yeah.
if that means people are sending them food, that they know who gave them that,
Mm.
and that they're being thought after,
Yeah.
that life doesn't just keep going
Yeah.
and they're forgotten and this terrible thing happened to them and so what?
Yeah.
Right? Like no one is caring for them. So
I think the community aspect has been the most incredible experience to witness, not only just seeing the slivers of it that I have for your own family, but also just across the board with other people that have lost things that I know here. And, people outside of LA want to talk down on LA because of a stereotypical persona of who this city is, who she is as a whole in the city. And I just think, no, we are families and we are neighbors. And I've been here 20 years and I just felt an immense amount of pride in the speediness and the generosity that so many people in the city came together to take care of one another. And that is kind of like the hope that I'm leaning on right now of we have a long road ahead of us.
yeah.
But I also do believe that if we're continuing this, like, I'm going to take care of like these few families over the next couple of years and be there for them, like that is just going to continue to deepen those bonds and community and what that does for, I mean, it was really important to me, for example, the same thing what you're saying of like having your kids see who these things are coming from or know who these things are coming from. It's just as important for me that my kids were with me to deliver the stuff to your kids.
Yeah.
Because I want my children to be the types of adults that are going to say, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
We're gonna stop everything because this is an emergency and we are going to be of service to others. And that just is what warms my heart right now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Totally. It is a big deal for the kids to be surrounded by that kind of environment. And I am like just totally floored by how Los Angeles has come together to support everyone from the victims to like the responders. It's just been really heartwarming to see. I am trying to focus on that piece of things versus I know there are other layers to what's going on out there. But for me, I want to focus on that part of things because that is what's uplifting and that's what's present in this world, not the other stuff.
Well, I think there's so much that we can continue. I mean, I know there's a million things that I'll think about because I didn't even like really talk about the photo aspect because it's, a secondary conversation of like what photos do you take and what do you not take and how does that what is the impact of that? And maybe that's a future conversation when our brains have more bandwidth, in the
I took photo booth pictures. That's what I took.
yeah, because those are one of a
One of a
kind.
kind. We're
Yeah,
lucky because everything's digital
digital.
and on the cloud.
Yeah,
I'm bummed that I didn't take, like I said, my wedding photos, pictures of my mom and my dad growing up, pictures of my dad, my husband's father. So actually, I've been, I think I mentioned to you, I've been sourcing those out from relatives. So being intentional, like people who are far away in Chicago, which is where we grew up, they're asking, how can we help? Can we just send you stuff? And I'm like, you know what? Actually, I know you have pictures. I know
yeah,
you have pictures of my husband's dad. I know you have pictures of my mom, I want those.
yeah. It's so good.
And they have showed up and it's been amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I had done similarly with the photo booth pictures. I have years, like, years, over decades, worth of Polaroid or instant
Mm.
film pictures. And they're all in like 3-ring binder, and it's
Oh.
essentially like a collective album of
Uh-huh.
just instant photographs.
Mhm.
And those are the binders that I grab for my go
Oh, it
bag.
is?
I grab hard drives,
I wish I'd grabbed those.
and I was like, well, even if I have to reprint, at least I know the hard drives. But then I was like, those instant pictures, those are one of a
Yeah.
kind, and which is a similar thing. Um,
I wish I'd grabbed the hard drive.
I'm sorry I mentioned it.
Oh, no, I had thought about it because I thought, like, do I have the wedding photos saved? I don't
Yeah.
know that I did. So
You know what? But there's people that were at your wedding that probably took
true.
pictures.
That's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll hold on to that
Yeah.
possibility to unpack in the future.
Yes.
I think one of the things, because I know you have to go pick up your kids right now, in your last retreat that I was able to participate with you in, um, you did the practice of responding of I see you.
No, we're not doing that right now.
We don't, I know, girl.
I can't right now.
Okay.
Look at my nails. They're like chipped.
Oh,
No.
I know, but I think to kind of close us out right now, for those listening, the practice is just a repetitive eye contact directly for 2 minutes and saying, I see you, and matching each other in that connection. And I know we're not going to do that right now, but I do want to just say, I see you.
Thank you.
And you have been an incredible light to so many people around you. And you are a giver. You are wildly generous. You have a really good heart. You are an excellent mother. And you speak both. You have been through so much within the decades of your marriage, and the way that you have chosen to build your family and to have 7 children. That is an expansiveness of your heart and your character and how you choose to live this beautiful life. And I just want to, and I know that so many people that know you and love you are like, yes, because we've experienced that from you. And so my hope for you in these coming years, realistically, and even the next, days ahead, is that you just allow us to love you, And I know it's a hard thing from the other side of it to understand like how to best support you, but we love you.
Thank you. But as I put tears.
Cheers, you
Yeah.
just yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so proud
Thanks for that. I
to
appreciate
know
it.
you, and I'm proud to not only just like, we started as like a client relationship,
Yeah.
but you have become a friend And I just want you to know how much I appreciate you and all that you do.
You're sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm holding the running.
Thank you. Oh, thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Did that. Are we at 30
Do we say
minutes?
goodbye?
I don't know. Oh, it's
Oh,
48
it's still
minutes.
going. We're professionals. That's like a blooper reel.
Sitting there.
Yeah, that's like a blooper reel right there. Okay, well,
Thanks for joining.
this is a sign off, right?
Yes.
This is a sign off of the podcast for a minute.
Oh, yes. This is me taking a break for the next 6 months because I need to.
Wait a second. Let's re-record that when your hands are
Oh.
not in your mouth.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a pause.
Okay.
I'm big into pauses, as you know, and so a pause in work for a little bit, a few months, 3 to 6 months, because it's going to be a huge task.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out next steps. It's a bummer, but I think that makes the most mindful sort of thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But shout out to Jess. I always have to share.
Oh my
If
gosh.
you are looking for amazing photos of your family, like some of my best memories have been captured by you. Jess actually captured like a few weeks before the fire, photos of my little girls and their grandmother. And she hasn't sent them to me yet, but I did
Purposely.
tell her that the moment I see them, I'm going to sob because it was outside of our house. I had this play house built for the girls, and they did all this dress up. They were so happy over there. So I'm going to sob.
Of its own, since it's kind of like a closing.
If you need someone, she's amazing.
Oh, that's
the best photos.
That's very generous.
Info in the podcast notes. As I always do.
I know. We're going back and forth between like, oh yeah, that's right, we're recording a podcast right now. That's how I feel. I'm like, we're just chatting. And then I'm like, oh yeah, we should probably.
Thank you for joining us.